Well, friends, we are nearing the end of KX2's marquee, which means that we are just over a week from the end of the Era of Andor. And I dare you to say that three times fast because this might be my 20th take at trying to get this intro right. Now, some of you might be saying, hey, Egnards, what's so big of a deal with the end of the era, other than the fact that we will be finding out the new era for the game? Not something that we care about in this video or that we are going to be covering, but it is one of the most difficult, most stressful, and most toxic parts of the game since the start of the era system. Effectively, when the era of Andor ends and when the game transitions over to the next era, players will have exactly 3 hours to get those characters ready to lock them up for GAC. And I've talked about this in the past, but I want to talk about it again because it is something with everything else going on in the game that a lot of people are forgetting to talk about, are forgetting to express their opinions on. And I know that once it happens again, it is going to be treated 3 times worse than we treat the Monday of Hell Week. So let's get into it. Say what you want about the Coliseum and the Era system. I'm not going to tell you that I love it. You know my opinions on it. I've made plenty of videos on the subject. But the reality is that it is something that is here to stay. And there is a clear divide between the Era system and the Legacy system. Now, you can see here in my collection, I have all of my characters, and they're going to be at level 85 pretty soon. I will be able to get my 7-star Andor. And I do know that some of you are thinking, man, Egnards, you're out of touch. Like, this is not something that is going to affect me at all. And we will cover that because I promise it will affect you. And I happen to know that on that Tuesday when this happens and all of my characters become Relic 2 and have their Zetas, that I now have 3 hours to get them all up to somewhere around Relic 7 to Relic 8, find mod sets for all of those characters, and make sure that they are set for my GAC lock. Now, in the last era, in the era of anniversary, I will tell you that I got out of work at 2:50, so about an hour after the era had ended, and I had taken 2 bathroom breaks during that time to try and get a few mod sets on. I got home about 15 minutes later, and thankfully my wife was still working at the time, and it took me literally until right up against the end of that GAC lock. It probably was sometime around 4:58 when I was able to get all of my characters ready. And I'm not saying that they had good mod sets, but I am saying that they were at least usable. It was a very stressful time where you couldn't communicate with people on Discord, which, I tried very hard not to do because every single minute counted. And I happened to be one of the lucky ones. I happened to be one of the lucky ones because that specific day, I happened to be getting out of work earlier than I normally would. I also live in an advantageous time zone where that part of my day isn't a part of the day where I am sleeping or I am in the middle of my workday. There's a time of my day where I do have that downtime. So those players who are on the East Coast of the United States, and honestly, maybe in the West Coast of Europe, you're going to be in a better position to be able to get these characters up uninterrupted, assuming that your schedule is normal. But there are a lot of players who are going to be in a position where they are at 1 p.m. in their workday and they can't access the game until after their GAC lock, or who it's 11 p.m., sometime between 11 p.m. and 6 or 7 a.m., where they're just unable to get those characters uh, to be ready for that week. And it really does suck. Now, one criticism to this is that in the past, this has always been how it's run. Characters release, They get released right before the GAC lock. And, players either have it or they don't. But the reality is that when you are dealing with one character, when you are dealing with one team, when four-fifths of the team are ready beforehand, before that week with a journey character, it is much, much, much easier to deal with that time sink. Now, there are things that we can do right now to mitigate this. For example, I do know that there are players that take characters, on the low end, and they build out sets for their characters ahead of time so that they don't have to worry about this. But the other reality is that the game does want us having mods on our characters. The game doesn't want us sitting here with empty mod slots. If the game wanted us sitting here with empty mod slots, they would give us a couple of empty mod slots up here at the top for non-existing characters, right? If I have to hack the game in order to make myself ready, that is not great design space for the game in question. I do it because I have to. I do it because it's necessary, but it doesn't feel like it should be necessary. There are several things that CG can do here to make this time easier. And again, I will remind you that in that time, players are going to need to mod their characters. Players are going to possibly need to put Zetas on their characters, depending on if they have Cassian at 7 stars or not. And players are going to need to relic up those characters. And relicking up those characters, when you are going from relic 2 to relic 7, relic 8, relic 10, whatever you're doing, it does take a long, long time. That 5 to 7 seconds amplified across 7 characters and 7 mod levels for each of those characters does eat up that modding time. Adding to that the ability levels, if you don't have the Zetas, it can eat into your modding time considerably. And that is a problem. We shouldn't have to live in a state where this is happening. And again, we have several solutions. The first one, and I know that this is not a solution for the Era of Andor because we're already near the end, but give us the character one day early, right? I understand with the Marquee and the 7 day system, you can still do this. I can still unlock my character this way, but allow me to get my character one day early. I don't think it's a perfect solution. I don't think it's a best solution, but it is a solution that a lot of people have talked about. Solution number two is to lock characters out of GAC for the first week after they come out. So the Era of Andor ends, they are ineligible for that first GAC week. Again, don't think it's a perfect solution. Don't necessarily love the solution. Already, one of the biggest criticisms when it comes to eras is that players are not able to effectively use the toys that they have been given for 3 months. And this is just going to exacerbate that issue. But solution number three works. Solution number three is going to require some coding. Solution number three is probably not going to be ready for the era after Andor. But solution number three is something that makes sense. Allow all of those era characters to exist within my legacy roster, right? So right here, I'd have my Andor characters. Right here, I'd have my ISB characters. Right here, where Tebow sits, would be Cassian. Make those characters ineligible for legacy game modes during the 3 months. I click on a character, and maybe right here above their head, it says, this character is only eligible for era game modes, right? Just a little Boolean flag, yes, no, whatever. Right here, super easy to see. And allow me to interact with this screen based upon my era level. So allow me to see that Mike Clea, who's level 85 right now, It'll show, yeah, level 85 is an Era. It'll show that she has all of her maxed abilities here. It'll show that she is Relic 2 right here. And it'll show 6 empty mod slots right here. Allow me to upgrade those abilities. And if I do try to upgrade those abilities, there'll be a little dialogue box that says, warning, this is an Era character, and you may get this Era ability during your time in the Era. Are you sure you want to proceed? Let me hit yes or no. The same thing here with my relic levels. Allow me to click on this. Allow me to hit amplify, and it says, "Hey, warning! This character is a relic too. They are still eligible for Era upgrades. Are you sure you want to do this?" Boom, hit yes. Now this is ignoring the fact that I think that relic and gearing should have a slider bar, right? So she's at relic 2. I slide her up to relic 9. It says, warning, this character is eligible for Era, blah, 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 blah. Are you sure you want to proceed? Yes. Here are uh, the currencies that you're going to be using to take this character from relic 2 to relic 9. Some of these are rare materials. Are you sure you want to proceed? Yes. Boom. Now in my legacy, I have her at relic 8 before the Era even ends. Allow me to go into those mods. Allow me to change those mods. Allow me to put mods on her. They will not be eligible for the Era game modes. They will not affect the Era game modes, but allow me to set them. Allow me to put them in there. Allow me to have it saved ahead of time. And what this allows me to do, at a bare minimum, it means that the day that the Era turns over, the only thing that I have to do as a player is log in for 2 seconds and hit the GAC lock. And that's only if CG is unkind. But if they are kind, it would allow me on Monday night to hit that GAC lock, and those characters get saved into that GAC lock that one day early, whatever it is. And even though they were ineligible on Monday, they are eligible on Tuesday, and it makes my life easier. This will have an intense positive effect on the player base who are already stressed on that day. And I'm going to be honest with you, and I've thought about this quite extensively. I am probably going to take the day off from work on Era Day. And I know that you're thinking, Egnards, that's really dumb. Work life versus game life. But my school year is almost over. It is right now April 24th. This um, this Era ends at the beginning of May, and my school year ends in the middle of June. I have 2 more personal days that I have not used, and I can only carry over one of those days to my next school year. So I have a personal day that is floating around that I could use in order to solve this problem for me specifically. But that is an untenable position to be in for next year because I cannot feasibly do this for every single Era. I can only feasibly do it for this specific one time thing. And I probably am going to do it just to make my life easier and because it won't necessarily affect my work life. But I do recognize that there are a lot of players that are in situations that are less um, a lot less flexible than my own. And I do recognize that players should not have to wake up at 3 in the morning just to be able to play their mobile game and to be able to get their characters set up for GAC lock. And the other thing that you can say here is, well, hey, Egnards, it's really not that big of a deal, right? Like, a lot of people don't have these characters. They haven't wailed on these characters. They're going to be 4 stars. They're going to be 5 stars. Nobody cares. They're not going to use them. And that wasn't the case in the Era of Anniversaries. Now, granted, we had 7 characters spread across 7 teams. So it was 1 character in each team that was below 7 stars. I recognize that. But I do expect a lot of Kyber 2, low Kyber 1, and anyone below Kyber 2 to be throwing these teams on defense, even if they have a 5 star Cassian, because that 5 star Cassian means a relic 4, and those relic 4 characters are going to be functional specifically due to power creep. May not be amazing. They may be easier to fight, but they are going to be getting defensive holds. I expect that to happen, and I see that happening. CG, this is a problem that does need to be solved. Again, I do not expect it to be solved with the Era of Andor. Again, I don't even know if I expect it to be solved in the era coming up afterwards. I'm sure a lot of development time has already existed in that space, but I would really love just to see a notice that says, we are aware of this problem. We are looking into solutions. We are working on the problem. And in an upcoming era, we will have this problem solved for you. Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes is a game. It should exist within our free time. It should not consume our day. So please, everybody, whether you feel like this affects you or not, because this is something that I do think happens within this community, whether you feel like it'll affect you or not, recognize that it is going to affect other players. Recognize that some people are going to be in a detrimental position for no reason other than, well, the calendar says so. And recognize that just because a problem doesn't have a solution for you doesn't mean that it's not necessarily a problem that doesn't deserve a solution. With that said, please let me know what you think. I do like talking to people in the comments and on Discord, as long as the discourse and the agreement and the disagreement makes sense. Peace out and have a great rest of your day.